Have you ever heard the phrase, turn on, tune in, drop out? In the 1960s, it was an invitation for America's youth to try LSD from Harvard psychology professor Dr. Timothy Leary. Here it is 40 years later, and it continues to conjure up the images of drugged-out hippies. The media frenzy that followed this eventually led to the ban of LSD, as well as all the studies into it. Scientists, however, found a substitute in the chemical MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, until the DEA banned it, bringing psychedelic research to a dead end. In 1986, Richard Doblin, PhD, Harvard, founded the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS. By creating a strict clinical protocol, they were able to gain the FDA's approval to begin research using MDMA as a treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. And today these studies are ongoing globally. What I'd like to focus on today is how the FDA's approval of the MAPS-sponsored studies has brought psychedelic research back to life worldwide. After the ban of LSD in 1965, scientists switched to MDMA because it was similar to LSD and it was legal. These early studies showed promise. However, ecstasy leaked to the street and became a very popular club drug, so the DEA banned it in 1985, bringing psychedelic research to a halt for decades, until the MAPS Foundation in 2004 gained the FDA's approval to begin research on MDMA. And today these studies are ongoing in America, Switzerland, and soon to begin in Israel. MAPS' mission is funding studies examining new treatments for disorders that are resistant to the current established medicines, and they've chosen post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is a mental illness that affects men, women, and children, causing them persistent psychological symptoms like insomnia, nightmares, suicidal thoughts, as well as problems with their personal relationships. In 2005, the National Institute for Mental Health reported that 7.7 million American adults have PTSD and that 1/4 of those adult cases are treatment resistant. The mission of MAPS is to get MDMA through the FDA drug approval process and have it scheduled as a prescription drug. As you can see on the chart next to me, according to the clinicaltrials.gov website, there are 3 phases to this process, each of which is conducted on human volunteers. The first phase will include volunteers with PTSD or healthy. This stage will determine the early effectiveness of MDMA as well as any side effects caused by increasing the doses. The second phase will include volunteers with PTSD, and this stage will be used to determine MDMA's effectiveness in treating PTSD, as well as any other side effects it causes. Finally, we'll go to phase 3, which is a series of controlled and uncontrolled clinical trials that will determine the benefit to risk ratio of the drug, as well as provide the basis for physician labeling. Today I've mentioned how the ban of LSD led to the studies of MDMA, and how the DEA's ban of MDMA resulted in psychedelic research coming to an end for decades. But all that changed as soon as MAPS gained the FDA's approval to begin research on MDMA, and today these studies are going on globally. Therefore, the research shows us that because the FDA approved the MAPS-sponsored studies, psychedelic research has reawakened around the world. At this time, I'll take any questions if anyone has one. Yes?
At what point can MDMA be considered for rescheduling as a prescription drug?
That's a great question. It can be rescheduled after 2 successful phase 3 studies. At that time, it doesn't necessarily mean it will be approved, but it will be considered.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
Why was MAPS the only organization mentioned in the presentation?
Thanks for asking that. Although there are other organizations that fund psychedelic studies, MAPS is the only organization in the world currently studying MDMA. Anyone else? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you for coming.